Mahassalute Broncos country, what is going on? David Talks Broncos off of the cuff, my guy. Sorry, keeping y'all waiting a little bit, but hi back to you, my guy. Hope you're doing well, man, and hope you're enjoying your night, man. And yeah, let's get into this, man. We got we got free agency in like a couple days, and it feels like for Bronco fans, it's starting a little early. I love it. I love it with all these trades and all these crazy news items coming out. But Broncos have some decisions to make, man. We got the Cortland Sutton extension coming up. People are talking about should we extend Zach Allen. But when you look at our free agents, there's not really many free agents that I think your mouth waters over. I mean, mine doesn't. And but the Broncos do got to replace DJ Jones. I made a whole entire video showing why there's no reason why we should bring him back unless you're getting him at a really, really cheap discount. I just feel like there's a ton of different options and tons of different ways that you can upgrade there while also getting younger too. So we're going to break that down. So guys, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you haven't already. I appreciate it. I'd love to get to 1,000 subs before the draft. That's my goal. That's my dream. And it'll be awesome if y'all help me out with that. So before, well, I guess without further ado, let's do it real quick. Let me just fix some things, get the brightness up. I'm a little bit unprepared. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, top 5 defensive line prospects for the Broncos that I really think can help bolster this defense. I really believe would be good fits in a lot of different ways. And so we're gonna pop it off real quick here. We're gonna start with number 5. Why does this always do that? Sometimes StreamYard drives me nuts. All right, we back at it here. Well, without further ado, man, no more waiting, David. Appreciate you, man. Let's get into it. So number 5 on my list, guys, is going to be BJ Hill. BJ Hill is somebody that, very comparable in a lot of different ways from a standpoint of how much I think he's going to end up ultimately costing and measurables to DJ Jones. But I think he's a better player. They're about the same age. When you look at him, he's 29 years old. He's 6'3", 311. He really, he's the kind of guy that projects to be able to play inside and outside. Very similar. If you need him to be a true nose, he can do that. If you want him to line up as an end and stuff to run in certain situations, he can certainly do that as well. And one thing that really stood out to me on BJ Hill is that he's a very what was I going to say? It just literally escaped my brain. That was wild. He's a really good player on a very bad defense. I mean, the Bengals last year were terrible, but he was kind of one of the bright spots. And what I like to do is just compare some of these numbers, right? So he had 3 sacks. Obviously, his position at nose, you're not going to be a high sack person, but 26 quarterback hurries and 32 pressures last season, which is pretty damn good. I mean, it's ranked 33rd for defensive interior guys, but when you talk about guys that play nose tackle a majority of the time, it's definitely in the upper echelon. And just to give you guys a little bit of comparison, here's DJ Jones. He had 17 total pressures. He had 1 sack compared to 3, and he had less hurries as well. And he did all this playing 465 snaps compared to 710. So BJ Hill definitely is a more of a he plays a lot more, which is 710 snaps actually really impressive. So he played quite a bit. But I think that shows his versatility. But overall, I like him. I think that he's probably going to be pretty expensive. But if you're looking at allocating the kind of money and spending at that position, I would rather go BJ Hill over DJ Jones if that was the route in which the Broncos wanted to go. All right, getting it in to number 4. And I don't think you guys really know a lot about this guy. He does play for the Chiefs, unfortunately, but hopefully we can take him. And that is Tershawn Wharton. This is somebody whose story is actually super cool, man. He played at Missouri S&T for the Miners. And he was an undrafted free agent in 2020. Kind of undersized in multitude of ways, right? 6'1". Usually if a guy's 6'1", you like him to be closer to 300. But he's at 280. But this dude, every single year that he's been with the Chiefs, has just gotten better and better. And he really had a breakout season last year, man. He definitely has the vulnerabilities in the run game. So this is not going to be a DJ Jones replacement per se, but he's going to be a really, really nice depth rotational guy. Someone that, if Zach Allen or JFM went down, he could step right in. You can put Malcolm Roach in at nose on certain situations. You can maybe bump Zach Allen in there and have him, have a really good pass rush package with the 3 of these guys because he can really get after the quarterback. He had 9 sacks last year. 28 hurries, 21 tackles. Somebody that, really is just kind of been pretty consistent throughout his career. I mean, look back to 2020 when he was an undrafted guy. He played 612 snaps. He had 3 sacks. And then in 2021, similar amount of snaps and 4 sacks. He had an injury-riddled season in 2022. Comes back in 2025, 500 snaps, 3 sacks. So super consistent before he finally gets an opportunity. He played over 60 or maybe over 70% of the snaps for the Chiefs defense this year. I had 9 sacks, 5 hits, 28 hurries. You got to love it. He's a really impressive player. And I love the story, man. I love guys that are able to just come out of schools that I've never heard of in my entire life and make a name for themselves. I also think he's going to be, significantly cheaper than really anybody on this list. Even though he's earned to get a decent payday, especially given that fact that he's an undrafted free agent. He's not gonna cost all that much. Anytime you're an undrafted guy, it kind of always works against you. So I think you're going to be able to get him for pretty cheap. And it doesn't have his age here, but if I last checked, I think he was like 26. Yeah, he's 26 years old. He'll be 27 in July. So still a young dude, but really, really cool story. And, I put him ahead of BJ Hill because I feel like for the cost that he's going to be, I like the high upside. And that's kind of a Broncos, that's kind of the Broncos mold, right? When they talk about wanting to be a little bit more measured, go out, identify some of these talents that no one really talks about, and rock around with it. So I love it. I love it. And my guy David, looks like you agree. And yeah, just like you said here, man, Malcolm Roach on running downs, Warren on passing downs, no doubt about it. He's played a decent amount interior as well. I was going to look over here in the alignment snaps, a lot more than I had thought. It might not be in this one though. Give me a second. Oh yeah, no, it is. So he's played 120 snaps in the A gap. We're lined up right over center, and 591 in the B gap. So yeah, I mean, he certainly can play inside, especially on those pass rushing downs, and just get after and go after the quarterback. I dig that. He's a really fun player, man. I really, really dig him for sure. Big E, what's going on, man? What is going on, brother? We're doing good. Hopefully everybody else is doing good, man. But thanks for popping into the chat. But yeah, it's been a cool Friday, nice chill Friday night, man. He said, I just done a mock draft, completely traded out of the first and traded back twice and picked up 3 more picks this year and 1 next year and still got the Ohio State running back Henderson. Yeah, it's really fun to play with those mock drafts, bro. And I was literally thinking to myself, like, trading back for the Broncos is actually really dope. Like, I like the idea, especially if you can get like a pretty good haul for it, maybe an additional second or an additional third. And then if you need to trade back up targeting a certain player in the second round, you get 2 elite guys kind of in that 25 to 45 range. And you can get 2 dudes. I'm all for it, man. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, let's keep this popping, guys. So number 5, we had BJ Jones. So we're exchanging a DJ for a BJ. I think anybody will take that all day, every day. I know I definitely would exchange a DJ for a BJ, no doubt. And then number 4 was Tershawn Wharton. And so moving on to number 3, this guy, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want this dude like really badly just because the name is elite, right? We're gonna keep on the name trend here, and that is Poona Ford. The Broncos deserve to have a player on their team whose first name is Poona. Not gonna lie to you, man. It's pretty awesome. But all joking aside, this is a dude that actually had a really big breakout year with the Chargers last season. I think he started his career off in Seattle. I know he wasn't overly highly touted. He might have been a decent pick. I think he's like a mid-round pick. But somebody that hasn't always had the most. Sorry, let me pull this one up instead. Oh, he's a Texas Longhorn. Oh, he was a free agent. He was an undrafted free agent out of Texas. So there you go. Texas Longhorn makes perfect sense for the Broncos since we're kind of on our Texas Longhorn kick. But, you look at the first couple years in the season, he had a pretty good rookie season, according to PFF here. Didn't play too much. Played a lot of snaps later on in his career, but, very up and down in terms of, some years he was really good against the run, others not so much. Some years he was decent at pass rushing, other years not much. So not a super high sack guy, but the talent is there. The motor is crazy. And, he ended up having a really good year last year. He had 3 sacks, 14 hurries. I got to go back to the pressure rate. I think that's why I had that one open originally. So let me see if I can pull that up, because that was the important part. But yeah, I mean, he's a kid that, let's see how many pressures he had. Yeah, 23 total pressures as well, which is pretty solid. But I feel like there's some upside. Sometimes, when you see a guy, he gets to change the scenery and he really pops off after, a few years in a new situation. For me, it could be either a red flag or it can be a really good sign. And for him, I like it. He's somebody that's been pretty durable throughout his career, and just overall solid. He's good at defending the run. He can give you some pass rush juice, as we've seen. He's definitely undersized. I mean, that's probably why he ended up going undrafted. It might have been some medicals, because if I remember with him, he was projected to be like a mid-round pick. But at 5'11", it's a little bit strange. But dude, I mean, think about it. He's 5'11", but 310. He's absolutely just gets leverage on you all day. Short dude, that's an absolute behemoth of a person. And I dig it. And he's 29. He won't be 30 until later, so he's a little bit younger than BJ and DJ. But hey, man, I think that he's somebody that could be a pretty good player, and he kind of plays with his hair on fire a little bit. Perfect. And number 2, this guy, so underrated. I mean, we're not talking about him nearly enough. And that is Levi Onwuzurike. We could have 2 Zurikes on our team, but man, talk about just an under the radar player that's balling. First of all, he's 27 years old, which you gotta love. Second round pick from Washington, so highly touted coming out of college. He's put together a really good career with the Lions and really had his best season by far. So his rookie year was, it was decent for a rookie. I mean, it wasn't nothing special. Second year was injury riddled. Third year, it really clicked. And I love that. I love getting prospects like that, because you're kind of, they got the bad years out of the way early, right? They got their feet under them. Things are just starting to click, and then you sign them right when things are starting to click. So it's going to be a big time uphill trajectory. Very similarly to what we saw with Zach Allen. I felt like we got Zach Allen when he was just hitting his stride, and that's really paid dividends big time for the Broncos. And then opposite. I think we got the most that we possibly could have out of Draymond Jones. That was a very controversial pick, but it worked out for us, man. Draymond Jones got cut. He's released. He's looking for work now. So, but I like this Levi Onwuzurike guy a lot. 3 sacks, which isn't crazy, but the 29 hurries is really, really impressive overall. Like I said, he's young. He's probably going to cost you quite a bit more, if you ask me. Oops. Just looking at one more thing real quick. He's probably going to cost you a little bit more, no doubt about it, in comparison to the guys that we had talked about so far, Poona Ford, BJ Hill, and Joshawn. But overall, he's somebody, like I said, he's an ascending player. Dan Campbell absolutely loves him. We already know the kind of connection that Dan Campbell and Sean Payton have. Defensive wise, I don't know if it's necessarily they run a similar scheme as to what Aaron Glenn ran. But when you look at him, I mean, overall, the way he graded out on PFF was pretty decent, 33rd overall in terms of defensive interiors. But what I like about him, he's super well-rounded, right? Very well-rounded in terms of the pass rush and the run defense. And 45 total pressures. That's the number that I was looking to pull up because I knew it was a big one. I mean, that is off the charts. 15th for defensive interiors, which there's a lot of guys, and that's not even taking into account the amount of snaps. For 635 snaps, he played a lot. You got to love that. This is somebody that is, he might not always be getting to the quarterback, given that he has 3 sacks, but 45 pressures is very, very solid. I mean, it is borderline elite, which takes me to my prospect, my number 1 guy on my board, which I think is going to be elite, and that is Milton Williams. Dude just turned 26 years old, had an unbelievable year. He was probably the best defensive lineman for the Eagles, not during the playoff run and certainly in the Super Bowl. the guy's just a dog, man. He's disruptive, and he's really starting to hit his stride, given that he was a third-round pick just a few years back. Like I said, 26 years old. Love this dude. I mean, look at how he's grading out in the pass rushes. He had 8 sacks, 7 hits, 39 hurries. That's crazy. And his I'm going to go check real quick. I bet you his I don't know why pressures doesn't show on that screen. It's kind of annoying, but I bet you his pressures rate is off the chain because he does that. Oh, 40. Look at that. So actually a little bit less and significantly less snaps, though, than Unwazurike. But, yeah, just a guy that can absolutely get after the quarterback, man. And like I said, I think he's getting better and better. You just imagine yourself a situation with Milton Williams where, you've got him and John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen on the D-line with Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper flying off the edge. That's a crazy pass rush. He'll bolster it big time. That's the one big knock that I have with DJ Jones. As much as he was, very respected in the locker room and he was pretty solid against the run, that's pretty much all he did. He didn't give you any pass rush presence at all. So what was happening a lot last year is on the obvious pass down situations, they'd put in Malcolm Roach, and he's better than DJ Jones, but he's just one of those elite run defenders. You need a guy that can really get pressure up the middle, man, not let anybody, just having pressure in their face, not letting the quarterback stepping up into the throws or taking off running. Milton Williams can solve that for you. He can play all along the defensive line. He plays with his hair on fire. Obviously, the culture and he just coming off the championship, I think, is really, really helpful. He was a B-gap player for the most part there in Philly, but I think he's phenomenal. 6'3", 290. It's a really good size overall. He can do a lot, and he's just overall solid, and I think he's really starting to hit that stride. So, let me know what you guys think about those top 5. I'm a huge fan of Milton Williams. Really, those top 3 guys, they really piqued my interest. But I think Tershawn Wharton as well is someone that is flying under the radar big time. But the Broncos need to really address this D-line. We cannot think that just because it's not our glaring weakness and it's not a huge hole that we have, it is an unbelievably important position. And, for many, many years, we struggled with the depth of this defensive line. I think our depth is now better. But when you're losing DJ Jones, you've got to be able to replace and then replenish underneath to have some guys. It's going to be a make or break year for Ioma Uwazurike as well. So I haven't seen much to make me feel very optimistic about him. You've got like Jordan Jackson. You've got some other guys. I think Matt Henningsen is still on the D-line, but we certainly could use more talent. And I feel like we really need to bolster this defensive line. And, we get Milton Williams. We should still try to get one of these D-linemen in the draft too, because there's a ton of them. Big time. So David Talks Broncos just talks about Jordan Phillips. Are you talking about the Jordan Phillips that plays, or was there a Jordan Phillips that's actually coming out of the NCAA? Because there is both. I know Jordan Phillips was somebody that I think recently played for the Bills, or he still might be playing for the Bills. But there's also a dude in college that played that has never gotten a sack in his career, but he's the most elite run defender. So it might be him. When you ask me, do you pay Milton the big bucks? It's a good question, man. I personally, for me, I think that defensive line is so incredibly important, right? It's just always going to be, interior or defensive end type of a player is one of the most important positions in football. And even though it's not our biggest hole, if I was a GM of the Broncos, if I was going to spend the most amount of money on any player in this free agency class, I would probably choose Milton Williams, in my opinion, just because I think the kind of impact that he can have defensively is huge. And I get it. You want to give Bo Nix more weapons. We need to, and I think we certainly will. But, dude, one of the best things a young quarterback can have always is a really, really good defense. It showed last year. So, yeah, even for somebody that loves Chris Godwin, you know me, I'll talk about Chris Godwin for God knows how long. But if I had to choose probably between the two, I would be more excited about Godwin, but I would know that Milton Williams is the better pick So I guess I should be more excited about that. But, when you sign receivers, it's more exciting than when you sign defensive linemen, generally speaking. But yeah, I would pay him. I'd pay him the big bucks. I don't think the Broncos ultimately will, but I certainly would look into it, man, because he's a really, really good player. Really good player. Yeah. So Jordan Phillips from Maryland in the draft. Yeah. And I think I remember looking into him. I think he played at like 3 different schools throughout his career as well. And he was like, he's just somebody that's so incredibly good at plugging up the run holes and all that good stuff. So I want to go back and take a look at his journey because he's played at a lot of different places, if I remember. I think he's a little bit older, which is not a big deal. But I could be thinking about somebody else as well. So I don't know why I can't. Here. Oops. Let's see it. Oh, see this? It keeps pulling up the other Jordan Phillips. That's really annoying. Good thing they're both not in the draft because, the Raiders might mess around and take the wrong one. No, I mean, it looks like he was at Tennessee before he transferred over to Maryland. So I could be thinking about somebody else potentially. But this draft is loaded too, man. This D-line draft is legit, for the draft as well. But, so I guess you kind of got good things and bad things, right? I mean, a lot of teams might opt out to not give a lot of these veteran free agent defensive linemen big money because it's really deep draft. But it also kind of sucks because it's very top heavy. Like Milton Williams is kind of in a tier of his own. And so he's going to get the, big offers, and he's probably going to get a pretty big contract that I think he's going to ultimately price himself out for us. But I mean, you get yourself like PJ Ford or BJ Hill even, I'm good with that. I think that's a really solid move, 2-3 year deal, somebody that you're not committing a crazy amount of money to. But then you still want to pick up one of these guys in the draft, even as early as the first round with like Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon is somebody that I think from the standpoint of fit for the Broncos probably fits better than Walter Nolan does. I'm a huge fan. He looks like he was made in a lab. Had a really, really good combine too. So yeah, there's just so many guys. Alfred Collins. I know Andy's been on the Alfred Collins trains. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State's somebody that a lot of people are talking about. So yeah, it's a really deep class of defensive tackle, but there's some D linemen that I think can make an impact for this Broncos team too. And I'm all about it, man. I love it. So appreciate y'all, man. This chat been lit. I gotta catch up on some of the stuff that y'all been writing here. But let me know if there's anybody else, free agency wise. I know that like Jonathan Allen, for example, is available now that the Commanders let him go, and he's kind of intriguing, but also not as much either. I mean, I know he's like 30 or 31, so it's not like he's much older than, some of these guys that I had listed today, but I don't know what he mainly plays. I haven't really looked into him, but I could be missing something. Maybe Jonathan Allen still got some juice left in him. So he might be a little bit older, but Jonathan Allen, yeah, he's 30 as well. All these 30-year-old dudes just getting cut. There's a bunch of them, so. But yeah, also there was another defensive line prospect in this draft that I felt like, or there was a couple of honorable mentions actually that I wanted to talk about here too in terms of defensive linemen. And this is gonna sound kind of crazy because this dude's been in the league since God knows how long. And I've always talked about like being such a big proponent of like sign the young guys, sign the youth, keep this youth movement going. But Calais Campbell is someone that's really intriguing. First of all, the fact that he's just a Colorado guy. I feel like he's been tied to coming to Denver in so many different off seasons that never ended up working out. And even though he's 38 years old, the dude is played out of his mind. It's like he does not age. And so, for 1 year, hell yeah, he'd be a huge upgrade. Calais Campbell would be a beast on this line, even at almost 40 years old. But I think about the kind of locker room presence he is. I mean, he's nationally known as like one of the best locker room guys, one of the best leaders. Players love him. And so what can he do for these younger guys, right? On the team? What can he, if you end up drafting a young player in the draft, what kind of a great mentor is he going to be? How is he going to help guys like Zach Allen, who got great mentorship from JJ Watt when he was with the Cardinals? What can you do for someone like John Franklin Myers, who still, I think, has some room to grow? So it would be a little bit, wild signing a 38-year-old dude, but I love the fact that he'd be coming home. There could be some interest in him coming here for that reason. I know he wants to go with like a contender, and we're kind of teetering there, but yeah, man, he'd be a hell of a player. He'd be a really, really good player, and a great leader for this team. Somebody that I just feel like in the locker room, he'd be awesome. Javon Kinlaw, thanks for bringing him up too. Yeah, he was someone that came up as well. He's one of those guys where, man, I remember him coming out of college. He had so much hype. Everybody was talking about just an absolute behemoth, and he looks like someone that's going to be a beast. He hasn't really had the best career up to this point, but he is only 27 years old, man. It's a really good point. And, he was raw coming out of South Carolina, but he ended up being a first-round pick. They just really deemed him off of talent. And when you look at him, here, let's pull this up. Some of the Wikipedia stuff. He was a first-round pick, 14th overall. Big dude, man, 6'5", 319. 9.5 sacks in his entire career. Is nothing to really write home about per se. It looks like obviously, in those 2 years in the middle of his career, he had some injury problems. He only played 4 games in 6. So had a little bit of a breakout season, you can call it, I guess, when he finally played in 17 games back in 2023. And then he missed 5 games with the Jets last year. So he's kind of a steady Eddie guy. Maybe I'll pull up his, we'll look at some PFF stuff, get a little bit of an idea. Like I said, the PFF is definitely not the all and be all. The reason I love to use PFF though is because it gives you a lot of like really good insights in terms of how many snaps, where are they lining up, what's the hurry and the pressure rate and all that kind of stuff. So those are things you like to see. He did generate 30 total pressures with 5 sacks last season. And somebody that played, 695 snaps. So that's probably about 55 to 60% of the snaps. And he was primarily lined up as a B gap guy with, just 6 snaps lined up right over the center. And then 338 over tackle. So yeah, he's a good example too of someone that's interesting because you can see he was kicked inside a lot for those obvious pass rushing situations. And then he was more used as a D end on the other parts as well. So yeah, man, I mean, Javon Kinlaw could definitely be somebody, especially if he's not going to cost too much. I love the, kind of low risk, high reward player. And he could be that like I said, at just 27 years old. And you never know. I mean, he's him playing with the Niners, getting drafted by the Niners under Robert Saleh. And then when Robert Saleh had the opportunity to get him to come to New York, and ultimately Robert Saleh's last year, he brought him there. A lot of the times that's a really good sign. Like that's saying, hey, these dudes, they liked him enough to draft him. And then what they saw in those 4 years, and when they had the opportunity to get him, they got him back. So that's got to tell you something. And Robert Saleh has had a really good track record of just being a good, good defensive mind overall. So yeah, he's an interesting name, no doubt about it, man. And you never know, because it's always tough. Because I remember him, the fact that he's like a first round pick, he was a top 15 pick, and he's just this athletic freak. Even though he's played 4 years and it's been a very up and down career up until this point, sometimes there could just be that one team that like super inflates the price, or everybody can kind of just be on the same wavelength of just not giving him a lot. Like if you're going to ask me, I think he'd probably take a 1 year or 2 year deal for like, 8 to 12 million at most, but he could end up being one of those guys that, signs a 4 or 5 year deal for a team that really loves him. So you never know, but that's a really good catch, man. Javon Kinlaw probably should have snuck into my top 5, but I wanted to, honestly, I kind of forgot about him, but I also wanted to make the list a good mix of like really cheap guys that could pop versus, legitimate, but I appreciate that. That's awesome. PM. I'd be down with Cam. Yeah. Sorry, just reading through all these. It's hard for me to, if I'm not reading out loud, it's hard for me to like read and talk at the same time, obviously. T Fish is over here, my guy. All right, how aggressive do you think George and Sean will be this offseason? Better question. How aggressive do you want them to be? Thanks for the question, T. I appreciate that. I think that they're going to be like mediocre aggressive, right? They're definitely not going to be as conservative as they were last year for a lot of obvious reasons, but I don't think it's going to be anything like it was in Sean Payton's first year where we just went out and signed, it seemed like everybody, right? We got Stidham day one, we got McGlinchey, we got Ben Powers, we brought in a whole bunch of guys and spent a lot of money, so we were really aggressive that year. I think that what I can see them doing is having one highly coveted or like wave one or tier one free agent, whether it's a Chris Godwin like or a Milton Williams, or a Dre Greenlaw, Nick Bolton, one of those high price free agents. And then I think we'll probably get 2 to 3 guys that are like mid-tier level in terms of like still starters, still fairly big names, but not like the splashiest of the moves. And that I would say that aligns with where I'd want them to be. I think as a fan, you always are like, man, I'd love for my team to be aggressive. And it is really fun, but it's never really that smart to just go out there and spend a bunch of money on stuff. I think they're going to be very diligent. And, it's always for them, it's always about filling the major holes going into the draft. So, that being said, I think signing a D-Lineman is a lock. Signing an inside linebacker is a guarantee. Maybe bringing in another safety. A running back will be brought in, another wide receiver. But it's just a matter of like what they're prioritizing, right? And then you also got to look at it like inside linebacker is a huge need, and it's a really good free agent class for inside linebackers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got 2 pretty damn good linebackers, like 2 starters that they project to be starters in this draft or in this free agency period, because in the draft, it's not really one of those positions. I wouldn't say it's a bad linebacker class. I think there's a lot of really good players, but off-ball linebackers tend to have a little bit of an adjustment period anyways. So you could just take somebody in the mid to late rounds that you feel like got a lot of potential and develop them in the background and not have to worry about putting that pressure on them. So in a position like that, it makes a lot of sense. Tight end, they're obviously going to address in free agency too, right? So David had a great video just earlier. Go check it out if you guys haven't already, talking about his top 5 tight ends. And he made some great points. There's a lot of really good dudes. And, two of his top 5 guys or one of those, upper echelon ones. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for that. We need to revamp it, but there's no way in hell you go into the draft with a glaring need. It's just not a very George Payton-y type of thing to do. So yeah, I think that they're going to be fairly aggressive. I'm interested to see like their involvement in trades, like if they ultimately do any trades. One thing I was thinking about earlier is in the 2 years that Sean Payton's been here with George Payton, they've traded a player in the draft both years. They got Adam Troutman in his first year during the draft via trade. And then last year they got John Franklin Myers. Could there be another situation like that? I mean, those things pop up all the time, right? Could we be one of the teams that trades? Because what happens is, and I wanted to look this up, but what happens a lot of the times too is, like let's say the Broncos love Matthew Golden. I'll just throw this as an example, but they don't expect Matthew Golden to fall to him, and then he ultimately does fall. Well, then you can look at trading Courtland Sutton because you kind of filled that need unexpectedly, and I think that's what happens. That's what happens with a lot of teams that ultimately end up trading guys. Is that they end up getting somebody. Like they end up getting their defensive lineman, and then they can also ultimately trade away a defensive lineman that they currently already have. Doesn't seem like that was actually the case last year with the Jets. They just it was just one of those things that happened during the draft, or maybe they liked somebody a lot later on. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff to think about. But yeah, thanks for the question, T. I appreciate that though, man. But I'm gonna wrap this thing up, man. Y'all have a great night. Thanks as always for being in the chat. Like I said, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And real quick, while I got all you guys, because the number of viewers that I have right now is the highest that it's been so far, guys, go check out David Talks Broncos channel. He's got a sweet Discord that fans are able to join and interact with all of us local YouTube Denver media guys that just love to talk ball and love to ball out. And It's awesome, man. And so go check it out. I'll link it down below on like the re-uploaded video of this as well. So it's a good old time, man. We're gonna have a great time. So it's a great opportunity. And look at you, T Fishes. I appreciate it, man. Guys, let me tell you something. And T, I'm gonna send you something special, man. So hit me up for this. This is my first ever super chat that I've ever gotten. So that means a lot. Thank you, T. I'm gonna send you a nice little gift. Hit me up. Maybe we'll I don't know how we're gonna connect, but like comment on the videos and then we'll organize something. And I want to send you something cool, man. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. I want Greenlaw and Ingram, pay who we want to stay. Hit it in the draft and see what we have left. Dre Greenlaw and Evan Ingram would be elite. I would love that. I would love that. That would be an awesome, awesome combo. I think Evan Ingram is he obviously has a lot of potential. He can really add some much needed juice to this tight end room or this offense in general. But man, Dre Greenlaw is somebody that I just think is super slept on. There was a report that came out earlier that he's seeking, $12 million plus per year. No problem. No problem. Because not only is he a really good player and he's still not that young, he's coming a year removed from that injury. He's a team leader and team captain and a red dot guy, and people loved him. He's just exactly, I feel like he's finally going to be that solution that we would need since when? I don't know. Was it Todd Davis, maybe Brandon Marshall? But even before them, like I would say the last real solution we had is Danny Trevathan. So yeah, hell yeah. I love that. I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a wonderful evening. And yeah, go join us in that Discord. We hope to see you guys there. And we have a good old time and just mess around. And hey, maybe you'll have a chance to teach all of us or bring some wonderful insights to that group chat and add to the energy that we got going on. So appreciate y'all. Enjoy your night. Take care of yourselves and go Broncos as always, baby. Peace out.